Today I'm in the kitchen making an easy braided bread loaf. This bread is made with an enriched dough so it's soft and pillowy on the inside with a light, chewy crust. This easy bread recipe is perfect for the beginner bread baker who wants to expand their baking knowledge. I'm Rebecca and welcome to the kitchen. This is how I make a braided bread loaf.
To start off, I'm going to add 1 1/4 cups of warm milk to my large bowl. Add in 1 teaspoon of sugar and 2 1/4 teaspoons or 1 packet of dry active yeast. Set this aside for a few minutes while the yeast softens and becomes foamy. I'm making an enriched dough for the braided bread loaf, so I'm going to be adding a few richer ingredients. 1/3 of a cup of softened butter, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 2 eggs. Mix these ingredients together and then finally add in 4 cups of all-purpose flour. Mix and knead this together until you have a smooth, elastic dough ball. This should take about 5 minutes using a stand mixer or 8 minutes if you're kneading the dough by hand. If you're mixing the dough by hand, tip the dough out onto a floured counter and with the heel of your hand, press down and push the dough away from yourself. Fold it back over on itself and press down and away from yourself again. Keep repeating this same motion for about 8 minutes. While you're squishing and working the dough, either by hand or in a mixer, you're developing gluten, which is going to give the bread a lovely structure and texture. Place the dough in a bowl and cover. I'm going to put it in a warm place to let it puff up for about 1 hour or until the dough has doubled in size. Tip the dough out onto a floured table. I'm going to split it into 4. No need to measure it exactly. I'm going to pre-shape each quarter into a bit of a log so it will be easy to roll out smoothly and evenly. To do this, I just fold it over onto itself all the way around the circumference of the dough until I have a nice smooth dough ball. I'm going to roll each of these into a long, thin rope. Just roll it back and forth between your hands and the table. Press outwards with your hands to stretch the rope and make it longer until you have a rope that's about 2 to 2.5 feet long. Continue on shaping all of the 4 sections of dough. Try to make them all the same length.
Now that the strands are ready, we're going to start on one side and work our way to the opposite side using an over-under technique.
I'm going to secure my dough together at one end so my braid isn't unraveling as I go. Just pinch all of the ends together. With the first strand, I'm going to place it over and then under the next strand. It's going to go over the final strand. Now we go back to the beginning position. Place the new first strand over and then under the next strand. And finally over the last strand that we just used to weave on the last row. I'm going to continue doing this exact same thing, starting at the beginning and going over, under, until I reach the end of my loaf. Make sure to keep the strands relatively tight together as you weave. It will still expand during the final rise before baking, which will also help tighten the strands together. I'm going to make sure to pinch the loaf together at the opposite end so my braid is secured at both ends. Now I'm ready for the final rise. I want to encourage my bread to rise upwards so I have a nicely shaped bread loaf to go into the oven. I'm going to shape these mats on either side to encourage it to rise up instead of out. Cover the loaf and allow it to rise again in a warm place until just about doubled. For me, it was about 45 minutes, but depending on the temperature of your kitchen, it may be longer or shorter. Just before going into the oven, I'm going to brush an egg wash on top to make that glossy golden brown crust that gives it that bakery fresh finish. This is now going to all get popped into a preheated 375 Fahrenheit or 190 Celsius oven for 35 to 40 minutes, or until deeply golden and sounds hollow when tapped. Let it cool slightly and then slice and serve this lovely pillowy soft artisanal loaf.
Enjoy!